What exactly am I doing? That's a really good question that we should be asking ourselves often. This was a question posed to me from Ryan Wilmoth, new owner up in Los Angeles, who by the time this video airs, he's running an office up in the Bay Area, so congratulations to Ryan. And this was a question asked at BBB recently. As you gain more and more responsibilities, as you move to the Bay Area, you realize there's more and more responsibilities. I don't have Grant around here sharing in these responsibilities. How do you, or what allows you to find enough time in the day? And again, we find ourselves getting busier and busier. And so it just brings me back to a time in my life. And I wrote about this in the book, Grow Right Now. Shameless plug there for the book. But there's a chapter in the book called I Want It All. And I talk about my experience with the 6-minute tracker. So the 6-minute tracker. So many years ago, my complaint was, it feels like I'm driving on ice. I've got this sports car. I'm young, I'm energetic, I'm full of energy. I've got, all this focus and these big goals. So my speedometer says 100 miles an hour, like I'm cranking. But I'm on ice, like I'm not really going 100 miles an hour. I'm spinning my tires. I'm really only going 10. So how can I kind of bring that gap down, that if my speedometer says 100, I'm actually going 100, or if my speedometer says 60, I'm actually going 60. And so I was recommended the infamous Ken Gutnick to come in. He comes into my life and he introduces the 6-minute tracker. So the 6-minute tracker was basically, Jamie, every 6 minutes, what are you doing? I want you to write it down every 6 minutes, put an alarm on your clock, a little reminder, it keeps pinging you every 6 minutes, write down, what are you doing? And do this every day from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed for 14 days, for 2 weeks. I mean, extremely difficult exercise, very distracting, obviously. You're in the middle of a conversation, like, oh, hang on a second, I got to write down, I'm having a conversation with Bob. 6 minutes later, I'm still with Bob. 6 minutes after that, I'm telling you, I'm still with Bob. So it was frustrating, but I did the tracker. After 2 weeks of doing this, Ken spits all this information back at me in a nice pie chart and says, Jamie, here are the buckets of time. Here are the priorities. Here are the things that you're doing the most, and let's categorize them and color code this. How do you feel about this? And it's kind of like, oh my goodness, I could be much more productive with my time. Only 45% of my waking hours were spent doing important things. That means 55% of the time I'm doing unimportant things, or as the majority of it was quadrant 3, the quadrant of deception, I was doing unimportant things that seemed urgent. In other words, the majority of the time I was engaged in a task that was important, but just too much time went by. I could have had that conversation in 10 minutes. Instead, it was dragging on for 30, sometimes 60 minutes. You can't do that multiple times throughout the day and have a productive day. So I do know what that's like. How can I be more efficient with my time? And as time goes on, we get more and more responsibilities. So how do we handle it all? I'm going to unpack that really quick, and really 2 categories here for you, Ryan. With all of the great coaching that I've experienced over the years, Ken Gutnick, fantastic coach. Years later, I hired a professional coach with a degree from Harvard and Brown University, Renee Cooper, real professional coach. Never had a relationship with her, so she really came in not knowing a lot about me to really dissect and take a look at me from a fresh new lens. What I've noticed about these fantastic coaches is they ask the really important questions that we should be asking ourselves. They're not so great at telling you what to do. Like Renee never told me what to do. Ken never told me what to do, although that's what I was hiring them to do. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. No, they would ask me the questions that I should have been asking myself. So 2 categories for you, Ryan. Again, these are really good questions that we should be asking ourselves. Here's important question number 1 that we should be asking ourselves. What are the important things that only I can do? Or another way to look at it, what are the important things that I do best? So when I really thought about that, I'm like, gee, what is something that only I can do, or something that's really in my strength zone that, I can consider myself an expert in, or people will line up for this type of expertise? And I'm like, huh. And so just an example that I came up with, I'm like, hey, what am I really good at? Well, I'm really good with financial literacy. I've been good at saving money and having money make money, and I think I can teach this stuff. So let me get in my strength zone and work with that. Character and values. I'm a big fan of your values are exposed through your daily agenda. So hey, let's just identify those values and your character on the front end. Like, who do you really want to be? Priority management. The calendar management. Like, I feel I'm pretty good with that. And I take a lot of interest in my own personal and professional development and development of others. Those are my areas that I really want to work in. I'm energized by those areas. I'm good in those areas. So I'm going to stay in those strengths. So Ryan, those are just mine. To give you an example, I would encourage you, ask yourself that same question. What's something that you're great at, or what's something that only you can do? That's really the right answer on where you should be putting your time. Put them into your strengths, put them into the areas that you are an expert in. And the second question I think we should ask ourselves, are there any quote unquote minimum wage tasks that you're doing? Are there like easy tasks that we could do something with? Now, what is that something we could be doing with those tasks? Well, here's something you can just remember. They all rhyme. So what can you automate? What can you eliminate? Or what can you delegate? In other words, let's get these things off of our plate because they're quote unquote minimum wage tasks. You could hire somebody to do these things. So again, automation, the world we're living in, even in the world of AI, as it's going to become stronger and stronger technology for us, we can certainly come up with things that we can automate, from recruiting to reporting. Lots of things that we can automate and have technology do for us. There are certain things we can delegate. Like, what are things you want to outsource or delegate to? And so you may want to inspect that, right? You want to, expect and inspect on those tasks that you delegate. And are there certain things that you should stop doing, that you can eliminate? So those are really the two questions, Ryan, to ask ourselves. Again, what are you great at? What can only you do? And are there certain things you should get off your plate? And I think the more you ask yourself those two important questions, the more you're going to stay in your strength zone. You're going to do the important things, and you're going to stop doing the unimportant things. That's really the key. What do you say no to? You can only say yes to one thing at a time. Everything else you're saying no to. What should you really be saying no to? Important question.